Hello, friends. Today I am going to review the book Atomic Habits and what I learned from the book. Now, one of my key learnings that I want to apply right away is that our brain processes the visual cues we get far better than the spoken words, and whatever we see sticks around for a very long time. And hence, I have included a lot of pictures with this presentation so that you will be able to remember the learnings for a very long time. It all started with the British cycling team. They were so poor that a leading manufacturer refused to lend them their bikes. Why? Because if someone saw the British use their bikes, no one else would buy their bikes. And there was a remedy for this. The Britishers appointed a new coach, and the coach believed in the power of atomic habits. What did he do? Some things included rubbing alcohol on the tires, painting the inside of the van white so that they could spot dust immediately, using electrically heated overshots, using the right massage gel that aided to fastest recovery. So as you may imagine, all these were very minute changes. However, they led to the major breakthroughs. And guess what? The British team won the Olympics. They won the Tour de France and they stayed winners for 5 consecutive years. Now that, my friends, is the power of atomic habits. Atomic habits start and look like a very small change. For an airplane, after it takes off, if the nose tilts by just 3.5 inches, you may end up reaching Washington DC instead of LA. So that is a big change that occurs despite a seemingly small initial change. It all comes to the power of compounding. If you get 1% better every day, you may end up becoming over 35% better at the end of the year. It just works even for your habits, just as it works in the world of finance. And what is important is the trajectory. It's not as to how are you growing or not, but are you like what rate are you growing in, but what is important is are you growing or not. So if you see this line, it is growing at a slower pace than what a person may expect initially. However, after the valley of disappointment or the period of plateau, the growth that you achieve is just phenomenal. Now this is the power of atomic habits. You may be thinking that it's okay if I'm not good to somebody for a day, for a few interactions, but that just keeps on building. Similarly, if you do something good for a person, your relationship keeps on compounding and your whole identity changes. You turn into a person who cares for others, and that is very important. So, what is the difference between goals and systems? Should we have our goals? Are goals everything? Of course, winners and losers both have the same goal. But then why do winners end up lifting the trophy? Because they have better systems. Goals are temporary in nature, whereas systems are permanent. Goals require you to win the next game, but systems ensure you continue playing. So always aspire for better systems and the score takes care of itself. So the goals will naturally be handled. How does a behavior change occur? It starts at the outcome level. I want to achieve something like this. Then you change the process or the system that you are aiming to achieve the particular outcome. After that, with small incremental changes in day-to-day life, your identity itself changes. The way you see yourself, that gets transformed. Imagine a scenario. You ask a smoker who is just trying to quit cigarette. If you ask him, would you like to smoke? And if he says, no, I am trying to quit. Versus if you ask another smoker and he replies, no, I am not a smoker. So that clearly means that the first person still believes that he is a smoker and he is likely to return to that habit, whereas the other one has completely transformed. His identity itself has got transformed, so he believes that he is no more a smoker. That is what we should aspire for. Now, there are some very nice experiments mentioned in the book. A lot of these experiments have got Nobel prizes. So one of them was a cat. If you put a cat in a cage The cat, and there is a lever inside. If you press that lever, the door opens. Initially, the cats took a long time to open the door, close to more than a minute. But later on, in the next iterations, they were able to come out within 10 seconds. So what does it say? It says that all human living beings actually have the ability to incorporate some habits. Now, what are habits? Habits are automatic judgments. Whenever you face the same problem again and again, say if you dump the same cat in the cage again and again, it will try to find the solution, and that solution will become internalized. That solution is in fact not at the conscious level, it is at the subconscious level, and that is the power of habits. So if somebody asks like, are habits good, do they give you any freedom? So habits actually give you a lot of freedom, because if you have good financial habits, you will never be broke. If you have good exercise habits, you will always stay healthy. Now once you put all these decisions that are good in your favor in autopilot mode, you are free to look at all the other things in life. So habits equals to freedom. Now, how does a habit form? There are four stages for it. Initially, you see a cue, you develop a craving, then there is a response from your end, and if the reward is good, the habit tends to repeat. For example, you may hear a beep, that is a SMS or a WhatsApp kind of a beep. That is a cue that some new message has arrived. You develop a craving, it's like a motivation, you want to see the message. Response, you think, you pick up the phone and then you check the message. And reward, if it's a nice joke, you will likely to pick up the phone again. If it's something very bad, maybe you will not fall back to listening on going back to the social media. So this is a continuous cycle: cue, craving, response, and reward. This is a continuous loop that leads to habit. Now, coming to the cue, are cues same for each and every person? At the outer level, they are, but we superimpose our beliefs, our moods, etc. on them. As an example, if at a casino you hear a lot of jingles, the sound of coins, etc., that may be enough to motivate a gambler to get into the casino. But for normal people, it may just be background noise. So, how you react to a cue depends on what kind of a person you are. Now, the best part of the book is these four laws. This is the best slide as such. The first law is cue. If whenever you get a cue, you have to make it obvious. For example, there is a SMS beep and you do not want to look at the SMS. Then what do? You keep your phone on silent so that the cue becomes unobvious, or you hide the cue. There you then so that actually depends on whether you want to create a habit of looking at the phone continuously, or whether you want yourself to have more time in your life. Similarly, you have to make the craving attractive, you have to be motivated. So all these things will lead to a positive habit. Response, you have to make it easy. For example, if the phone is nearby to you, you can pick it up easily, so then the response is easy. And reward, you have to make it satisfying. So if you can follow these four laws, you can either break an old habit or you can cultivate a new rewarding habit. These are the master key, my dear friends. So there is an interesting story about a woman paramedic. So that is a story where the woman actually comes to see her father-in-law and tells him, "Oh, I don't like the way you look." And the father-in-law replies, "Oh, I don't like you the way you look either." So jokes apart, the woman says you need to get admitted to hospital immediately, because she is in a habit of picking up cues from the facial expressions. Like whenever some major artery is blocked, your face tends to swell or the blood flow tends to increase or decrease in a different manner. So that is something that she has picked up being a paramedic, and that is the power of habit that allows us her to save her father-in-law. Now you may be have certain bad habits and you may not know about it. For example, you may be occasionally interrupting somebody. If you repeat their habit, you are most likely to end up interrupting everybody, and that actually becomes a part of your personality. So you need to watch out for your bad habits. Now, how to become aware about your habits? So one good way is like the Japanese railway pointing and calling system. Like there is a nice story where a person's hand gets stuck in the train door. However, the Japanese always have a pointing and calling system implemented, wherein they look at the train and before they blow the whistle, they check whether something is bad. So now I have seen this in the Indian railways also. And if something is bad, they don't like immediately let the train go off. So that's a pointing and calling system where you actually become aware of your habits. Now, at a personal level, what you could do, say if you're going, say if a woman is going for shopping, she may say, I have my cash, and saying things aloud loud, pointing and calling, so you have to say it loud. She may say, I have my cash, I have my card, I have my bag, I have my husband. So that way she says whatever she has and doesn't end up forgetting anything. Now there was an experiment of by like some researchers of how to start a new habit. Now one what they did is they created three groups of people. For one group, they told them that this is something which you should do because it is good for you, it's good for you. Second, they told the health benefits in detail, like you will live longer for x number of years, your life will be so blissful and things like that. And to the third one, they actually asked them for a commitment, like when would you do this behavior, when and at what time. And to everyone's surprise, even though they had told the second group all the benefits, the second group did not fare any better than the first group. So what it means, if you want to cultivate a habit, you have to decide when and where. You have to be very specific. For example, if you want to exercise, you should say, I will exercise after I lock my computer and get up for lunch. So that's specific. Otherwise, if you say I will do it before lunch or after lunch, there is no time specificity attached to it and you may end up forgetting it. Another way to cultivate good habits is habit stacking. Like you have a one habit and after one habit ends, you can start the second habit. After the second habit ends, you can start the third habit. So that's called habit stacking. Now there is a famous Detro effect that the author has highlighted. Like Detro was somebody who wrote a lot of encyclopedia, etc., and he went broke. Luckily, the Russians donated him a lot of money and bought over some of his material. However, what happened is once Detro got bought one item, he again thought that he needs some other item to go with it. Like if you buy a dress, you may think your house is not looking as good as your dress, so you may want to change some items in your house. So this phenomena is known as a Detro effect, where you shop for one item and then you think that you need to shop for some other item as well. Now similarly, you can use habit stacking to improve your social skills. Like you have a habit of going to a lot of parties, so rather than speaking to a select set of friends, you could say, as soon as I go to a new party, I will introduce myself to one other person. So that is a habit stacking. Similarly, while dinner, you may say, just while I am having dinner early, say by 8 p.m., I will fill it up with all vegetables. So again, you're stacking your habits one on top of the other. Now, there was an interesting experiment wherein this figure shows where all water bottles are placed, where this dark gray is present in the picture. And after that, this shows that they added a lot more water bottles. So what happened is, in, in, they did not tell anyone that more water has to be consumed. However, everybody just ended up drinking more water bottle because of the change of the layout. So it's not about self control, like what you should eat, etc. It is about how what things you see. For example, if you see a lot of apples in your home, you will consume apples. If you see cookies, you will consume cookies. So if you see cookies, you may end up eating cookies. There was again a nice experiment in the Netherlands where houses of the same size had got different electricity bills. So they saw that one of the like half of the houses had got electric meters which could be seen very easily. The other half did not. And as a result, the people who saw their electric meters consumed naturally less electricity. So your behavior is a function of the person you are plus the environment where you grow up in. Now there was a nice experiment at the Schiphol airport where they planted a dummy insect on the urinals and they found out that that reduced the spillage all around and reduced the maintenance cost. That was a Nobel Prize. So that's again an example of how changing an environment impacts people without preaching the people the right way to behave. Now that is the amazing power of habits. You have to control your environments and then you can expect a desired change. A good way is change your environment and you will be able to change your older habits. And interestingly, this experiment at the Schiphol airport won the Nobel Prize in economics. And I've seen this being implemented at some of the consulting companies that I've worked for as well. Say if you have someone who wants to get rid of their insomnia, what would be your advice now that you know the power of habits? Well, you can say that a person should separate the rooms for one purpose, one room. For example, if you are in the bedroom, it is just to be used for sleeping. A bedroom should not be used, for instance, for seeing SMSs, watching TV, etc. So, until you are feeling very sleepy, you should not enter the bedroom. That's a very quick fix way to cure insomnia. Similarly, your office laptop should not be used for shopping. That's a sure shot way to lose productivity. One instrument, one purpose. That is the power of habits, because that automatically cultivates habits. As we said earlier, habits are something unconscious, so you will not be able to control this urge. And bad habits act as auto catalysts, wherein if you watch TV and have popcorn, you tend to feel dull after a while. You tend to feel energyless, and that means you will watch more TV, and that cycle will just continue. So be very watchful about that. Now, how to break habits? Firstly, you may want to hide your phone. So, what you can do, as we discussed earlier, there was a slide where we mentioned we need to work on these cues. If we want to build a habit, we have to make the cue obvious. If we want to break a habit, we have to hide the cue. If we want to cultivate the habit, the craving should be attractive. And all these need to be completely inverted when we want to break a habit. So the third law, the response should not be easy. So if you hear a buzz, for example, from a phone, but the phone has been hidden somewhere and you're not able to locate it, then the response will be difficult. And that is how you will be able to break your habit. So either of these rules have to be used for creating as well as breaking the habit. So there is a interesting scenario of a dopamine release. So what happens is, whenever we get rewarded for any habit, we tend to repeat the behavior. And then when we crave the habit, for example, if I hear an SMS beep or a beep on my phone, there will be a craving in me and the dopamine will spike immediately. So this craving has to be avoided if I want to break the habit. That's again another reason why daydreaming about any vacation makes you actually experience the reward, because even before you get the reward, the craving itself acts as a reward. So you have to use this scientific experimentation to your own advantage. There is another instance of temptation bundling. So what this means is, if you want to watch TV, watching TV is your temptation. So you should say to yourself, I will watch TV only if I am exercising. So that is a temptation bundling. So if you are not exercising, TV should be switched off. There was an interesting experiment wherein a person wanted to check if he could cultivate habit for anything on this planet by just ensuring that the people, once they are born, if they are endure or if they go through certain training, will that lead to particular habits. So what the author did is, he actually had three children and he made sure that all three of these little girls, right when they were of the age of 4 and 5, they were exposed to chess, and the whole day they played only chess. Their entire rooms were filled with chess icons, and that is, the environment was completely engineered to favor their behavior and bias towards playing chess. In fact, all the three women, they had no background of chess. Like, their father and mother never played chess. But these all three women went on to become grandmasters, and some of them were the youngest grandmasters. So one of them, in fact, there was an interesting incident where the father saw one of the daughters playing chess in the bathroom at midnight. Then he asked his daughter, like, you can sleep now, the chess won't go anywhere. Then the daughter replied, the pieces in fact won't let me go anywhere. So that's how they were like completely addicted to chess. Which this story underlines that whatever habit you cultivate, that is actually shape your identity. And How do you shape identity? It could be by the family. Now these sisters were brought together in one family, so they had a family upbringing. Other way to shape a habit may be what many people do, we emulate. So that's why when we want to buy something, we check for product reviews on Amazon. So we want to be with the crowd. Either we are in fact good to be wrong also with the crowd. So there were some interesting experiments on that as well. Like people follow what they see majority of the other people doing, as well as we follow what the powerful people are doing. No wonder the 7 habits of highly effective people is so successful, because everyone wants to emulate the habits of successful people. Now if you want to break old habits, you need to just reprogram your brain. As Gary Karp said, I am not confined to my wheelchair, I am liberated by it. So that's a mental shift that you need to undergo. Instead of saying I have to do this and then feeling bored about it, you can say I get to do this task. So you have that kind of a freedom attached to it. So it's all about mental programming. Instead of feeling nervous, you have to say I am feeling excited. Now as we know, this all is well, this is again a legendary mantra in India. So you just have, whenever you are stressed, you just take 3 deep breaths and smile. So after, and then you have to go on with your work. Afterwards what happens is, the immediately once you take 3 deep breaths, you start feeling good, because that feel good actually becomes a habit for the 3 deep breaths. And that is what you should cultivate. So there was a photography experiment in one of the US universities, where they made 2 groups. One group, they said that you have to click only one picture and that has to be your best picture. The other group, they said you can click as many pictures as you want and we will grade you by the amount of pictures that you have clicked. And guess what? Who was having the best picture? It was the people who clicked the most number of pictures. What happened is, when one group was said to click the best picture, they never ended up clicking many pictures. They just did a lot of research, theory, etc. Whereas the other group actually clicked a lot of pictures in different lightings, etc. And slowly they improved. So the best is the enemy of the good. So you should just keep on trying small, small things and you will soon be able to succeed. Another important thing is, you should never ask how long it will take for me to cultivate a habit, because it is never about the time period, it is about the frequency. How often you try in the day. If you try something 10,000 times, obviously it will become better, faster. Now there is a law of least effort that can be leveraged to cultivate any habit. As human civilization grew, it grew on on the same line on the Earth's equator. So, for example, from east to west, if you see, the climate is more or less the same, because the Earth's hemisphere is at the same level. Whereas if you see the US, it is north south. So, a lot of initial agriculture happened along this horizontal line rather than along this vertical line. Why? That is the law of least effort. If you want to grow a certain crop in the north, whereas if you want to grow the same crop in the south, that will be completely impossible, because the weather conditions, etc. is very different. So everyone takes the law of least effort, and that is what you should take to cultivate great habits. For example, if you want to switch avoid watching TV, you should remove the batteries from the TV remote, or maybe unplug the wires. Once you do that, it will be more cumbersome for you to plug everything back, so you will not end up getting into that old habit. That is the reason why YouTube has autoplays. It is very difficult for someone to go and find what he wants to watch. But if YouTube itself takes that decision, it becomes a habit and you just end up binge watching YouTube. Now, there are some decisive moments which shape your entire day. So, if you see this particular chart, just 2 or 3 good decisions if you take, it leads to a very great day. Whereas, if you start with a bad choice, you may 3 4 bad choices, you may end up having a bad day. So, it's just about cultivating a few good habits for you to have a great day. So what you need to do for cultivating any habit, as we discussed, is making the response easy. For instance, if you want to write a book, you should start with writing one sentence. If you want to meditate for say like 15 minutes, you should start with meditating for 5 minutes or maybe 1 minute at the start. You should standardize before you optimize. So that is about making sure that you don't give up on something. If you want to say work out, make sure you have a gym in the society. So it won't need you to take your car and go out somewhere else. So make the response easy for creating any new habit. This is again an interesting thing. Like all of us actually graduated as per Charles Darwin from animals. So some of us still have our reptilian brain and animal brains, etc., inside us. And all these animals, etc., actually want instant gratification. They want immediate impact. So that is something that is still prevalent in the human species as well. For instance, our brain tricks us in making estimations. Say you're in an airplane and there is some turbulence, the brain may make you to think that the weather is very gruesome and you may actually get killed because of the turbulence. So it estimates that it is very risky to sit in that aeroplane while the aeroplane is shaking. Whereas it estimates the risk of losing your muscle mass to be very less. You may not imagine that you are just sitting on the couch whole day. The brain doesn't imagine that it will lose all the muscles and grow into a very sluggish person. So that is the tricky part. So what you should do, you should also trick your brain. For example, if you want to create a habit of saving, you should create a Europe saving account, for example. So every time you deposit some funds into it, you think you get some instant gratification and can imagine, because as we said earlier, the dopamine surge happens at the second level itself. You can, even if you daydream about your vacations, you're likely to feel very glad about it. And it is about not breaking a chain. So if you are exercising, just show up, just do 1 or 2 sets. So that way you will be in command. And why does everyone need a coach? Because we need to have a social contract. Once we know that others are watching us, others are motivating us, you are more likely to do a certain thing. So have a buddy with you for exercise, or tell your wife that probably you will pay her maybe 100 rupees or so if you break one of your habits. Now, once you have a social contract, that will and make sure that you are on the path to always repeating your habits until they become completely unconscious to you. Now, there are certain genes that impact how we are and what we do. For example, could Michael Phelps, who won the swimming competitions like Olympics, would he have become a good runner, a marathon runner especially? Of course not, because Phelps had very short legs. Now, short legs are good for swimmers, but not good for runners, definitely. And runners need to have a short upper torso. So there is an example in the book where a runner is like less than 6 feet and he has actually quite long legs but short upper body, and that actually allows him to run longer. So it depends upon your body frame. You need to decide what you are competent in, because competence is contextual. Somebody is good in something and you need to find out what you are good in, choose the right habits that match your personality. Now, can you actually just explore indefinitely? For example, you want to marry the best person. So can you actually just keep on dating each and every girl? Of course not, right? So there is an explore exploit trade-off wherein you need to explore initially, but then at some point you need to exploit. For example, if you start off a new career, you need to explore what you like, what you want to do in life. But say maybe after in your late 40s or so, you need to keep on working on what you have built up over a period of time. So this explore exploit trade-off has to be used when you create any new habit as well. Now, if you don't have any one particular skill set, what will you form your habit in? Habit has to be formed in the skills you're good in. Remember. So you need to then merge your skills. For example, the maker of Dilbert comics, he knew that he is not the best comedian or neither the best person who draws sketches. However, if you merge the two skills like comic sketches, then you can't beat him. So that's what you need to do as well. There is a famous Goldilocks zone wherein if you actually need to determine whether you are in the right zone to enjoy your job. If you are, say, playing a small child, you are not motivated. If you play Roger Federer, again you are not motivated, because here you will lose, here you will always win. So you need to be in the Goldilocks zone to be completely motivated and stay energized. Again, there is a nice thing about this clingy parampara. If you want to grow, if you want to change yourself, you don't need to stick to old, tried and tested ways of working, because that will not allow you to change those old habits. Remember how difficult it was for Shah Rukh to convince Amitabh to change his ways? Similar will be for anybody. So this clingy parampara business is the antithesis of good habits and life. One must be as supple as a child so that one can grow with new habits. Here, I would like to bring in some words that I heard from Jaggi Vasudev Guruji. He mentioned that habits, no matter if they are good or bad, put you in an autopilot mode. In fact, a book review that I did just before this, The Life's Amazing Secrets, mentioned that Sri Gaur Gopal Das ji also has his lunch alone so that he can be in a state of complete self awareness. Now, that is about Indian mysticism. But till that time we reach such a high state, we should definitely seek help from atomic habits to change our life and aid in taking better decisions on a day to day basis. This book is a accumulation of ideas, actionable insights which actually work no matter what the situation. Human behavior is always changing, but atomic habits is about those principles that never change. With this, you will be able to build some good habits, not just for a few days or a few months, and definitely just not just for new year, but you will be able to build habits that last a lifetime. Hope you enjoyed the review, and for further such reviews, do subscribe to my channel. Till I see you again, bye bye.